What's up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you're watching on our growing YouTube channel, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones, is, as you can tell by the backdrop, is at the Mohegan Sun Arena in Connecticut, following Carolina's 93-84 loss to Purdue in the Hall of Fame tip-off tournament. AJ, let's start on the offensive side of the ball first for the Tar Heels. I thought Dawson Garcia and RJ Davis led the way for the Tar Heels. Big time games for them, combined for 44 points. Dawson Garcia, 26 points, 10 for 13 shooting, 8 rebounds, only 4 turnovers. That was only blemish really on his record today. And RJ Davis with 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. Also had a big time stretch to start the second half. I think scoring 14 of Carolina's first 24 points in the second half. So big time game for him as well. Second straight game where RJ Davis has really done some good things in the second half in particular. But it started with those guys on the offensive side of the ball. We'll hit on defense and some other things here in a minute. But those guys were the guys who really led the way for the Tar Heels.
Dawson, honestly, if it wasn't for Dawson in that first half, they could have been run out of the building because they weren't stopping anybody. And they were losing their handle all the time. Mm-hmm. They turned the ball over, leading immediately to points for Purdue, but Dawson kept them in it. And, you know, we talked with Hubert the other day. I actually asked Hubert about Dawson's comfort and that kind of thing. And he said, you know, it's coming. It's coming. The breakout game's going to be there. It's coming. Well, this was his breakout game. Oh, yeah. And one of the things Hubert also said is that, like they did for Kerwin the other night, when he called some stuff to get Kerwin certain looks, he did that with Dawson. I think that one of the NBA-ish type things that Hubert has brought to things is that he will call plays for certain guys that have obvious mismatches, or if they're hot and they're feeling it, he'll do some of those things. And there was one sequence where Carolina got a stop on defense on the other end. There was a loose ball that kind of went in front of the Purdue bench, and Caleb picked up, was racing up the court, and Hubert's like, tell him go faster, but also told him to get it to Dawson. Dawson drew a foul on the play, didn't score a basket, but I think that was the move that Hubert saw coming. So I like the way that they could get guys the ball when they're on and get them on even more, because quite frankly, Dawson Garcia and RJ Davis as offensive forces had Carolina in this game and actually had them ahead at 66-65 with about 9 minutes left in the game. And this wasn't a bunch of guys chipping in like Purdue had there for a while until some of their really good players took over. Dawson was fantastic. He played with an edge. He played with some moxie. The 3 that he hit to give them a 66-65 lead, I could swear he looked over to Theo Pinson, who was sitting courtside there in a massive coat.
Yeah, I saw him, yeah.
And by the way, before the game, Theo was all smiles like he always is. I love his attitude.
Great.
But I think Dawson looked over to him. He did something, a little bit of taunt, a little bit of show, and I think that's okay because that's the way guys play these days, and they do that stuff because something good just happened. They don't do it when something bad happened, and they were in a great spot there, but they didn't finish the job. But I really like the fact that somebody else has stepped forward. They've now had 20-point games from Armando Bacot, from Caleb Love, from RJ Davis, and Dawson Garcia. Those are the things we talk about before the year. They have and Manic. They have a bunch of guys that can go off. They have 5 already in 4 games that have hit 20-point mark. So when you have the hot hand, ride the hot hand. And I think we saw that with him tonight. And I really liked – he looked quicker, Jacob. He looked like he had a little bit more spring. He was very in control of his game. I know he had some of those turnovers, but I'm gonna give him a pass on that because he was trying to do a lot there for a while because they were having a hard time getting some of the looks they wanted. And let's face it, he had some matchups that were very favorable, and he took advantage of it. I thought he read the defense well, not just in what he did with respect to the other guys, but the guy that was on him. I thought he read that really well also. So it was a very good performance by Dawson. And if it wasn't for him, they would have been run out of the building today.
Oh, yeah, big time. He really kept him in the first half. And just to throw another guy in there, Caleb Love, another pretty good game from him. I know a lot of it came in the second half, but 18 points, 4 assists for Caleb Love too. So, yeah, but Garcia and RJ were the guys that when you were watching that game, like, yeah, the ones keeping Carolina around in this game, and big offensive ones. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Let me jump in real fast, Jacob, about Caleb. I know we weren't going to talk about Caleb, but I want to say this. Caleb was not playing very well. He didn't have a real good game, and he had a game that at times kind of looked a little bit like last year. A year ago, he didn't pull himself out of that during the course of the game. He actually did that tonight. Yeah. So he came up pretty big late. He pulled himself out of a bag. He had a really good 5-point sequence that I thought was important. I know we weren't going to talk specifically about him. I thought that's – look, It's November 20th. There's a lot of time. There's a lot of growing to do. There were two really good basketball teams on the court tonight. Somebody had to lose. And I thought that Caleb, by working through it, that's a positive that Carolina can take from this.
Yeah, most definitely.
So your next thing after I hijacked that.
No, you're good. I had to take a double take at Caleb Love's final stat sheet too, because I was like 18 points. I was like, he didn't seem like they had that great of a game. Like I said, a lot of it kind of came late. But still, yeah, he did improve after what wasn't a very good performance for, particularly in that first half. Let's talk about the second thing. Carolina played with a lot of grit. I think that's a great word to describe it. It was a really awesome game to watch from a neutral perspective, particularly in that second half. Carolina would cut it. So they took the lead one time. Purdue would go on this run. Jaden Ivey had a lot to do with that, obviously, and obviously had a big game for Purdue. But overall, you saw the Tar Heels batter back. You saw them stick around. You saw them not whittle or go away. I think it was it was somebody that tweeted it. I can't remember exactly who it was, but he was like, I heard a couple of people kind of agreeing with him that, this game last year, Carolina probably loses by 20 or 30, I think is what the tweet was. And I was like, potentially, yeah. I think we saw a lot of fight in this team, and a team that, was going up against one of the best teams in college basketball right now. And you would think going into the rest of the season, we'll see how that happens. Cause we said the same thing after the Iowa game early last year, and they kind of fell off towards the end of it, but tough opponent in Purdue. Carolina stuck around, played with a lot of grit.
Well, they played a much better defensive team tonight than Iowa was at any time last year.
Yeah.
Good point. Different about defense. I think it's a good point about that you just brought up, because there were a lot of elements to what they had to do to keep this thing together. Ivy was a huge problem for them all night long. If Leaky Black is healthy and he plays,
that's a good point.
I think Leaky would have maybe stopped a few of those drives, which could have been the difference. Because to your point about last year as well, to me, early on, it looked like Wisconsin. It looked like Wisconsin, and it felt like Wisconsin. That's the last neutral site game that they played. And it was against a Big Ten team with size and shooters, and the way that Sasha was going off out there. I'm like, man, this has Wisconsin written all over it. But this club fought through. And Armando was in immediate foul trouble. Huber actually took him out after the first foul, which was very early. And I thought, maybe he sees something, maybe senses something. Armando never got into it. Never got into this game. They basically played without Leaky and Armando. And Armando was hamstrung. And then Garcia eventually picked up fouls. Manic kind of had foul trouble all night long up until his three. He had a free throw. And then a couple minutes later, Manic had a three. He had 2 points. At one point, with about 8 minutes left, I believe that Armando and Manic each had 2 points. And they were right there in this game. And they didn't have Leaky Black defending. So I like the grit. I asked Hubert after the game about the grit, about some of the fight that they showed. And I thought that this is one of those games, and you see them all the time. One of those games that you play in November, two really good teams. And if these two teams meet again in March, it'll be interesting to see how Carolina grows that point, because Purdue's going to be really good all year. They got parts, man. And they got good parts, and they got parts that are going to show up. The way they can play inside with Williams, and Edey wasn't really much of a factor tonight, but Williams was fantastic. They got guys that can play. They got guys that know what they're doing, and they're very well coached. So it would be interesting to see where Carolina is in March after seeing what happened tonight. And, and if you do have Armando not getting in foul trouble, which is hard to do against this club, they get other teams' bigs in foul trouble. And Leaky is playing that night and is out there defensively and just kind of, stopping a couple of those drives by Ivy, and not just the drives for buckets, but his kickouts, his penetration, and what they got off of his movement with the ball was amazing. But Carolina hung with it. They never ever wilted. We've seen that a couple times this team, where they've dug down and they pulled something out that maybe wasn't there a lot last year. Certainly wasn't there 2 years ago. So it's a loss, but I like the fight. They had 23 second chance points. They dominated the offensive glass. I did not think that they stood a chance of winning on the backboards in this game, and they won, I think, 37-30 on the glass. But
37-31.
I believe, and I think they had 13 offensive rebounds, and they got a lot of points off of them, so they were scoring. And some of the things that they missed, Manic missed a tip. Anthony Harris missed a tip at the rim, which was a great effort on his part to fly in from the wing and nearly get a tip. So they were not just getting offensive rebounds, but they were making them count. And when you're doing that, that's grit. And I thought they showed a lot of it. They have some issues. They got stuff that need to fix, and it's going to take time to fix it. People need to be patient on that. But I like what I saw in a lot of ways. I've seen a lot of games this time of year between really good teams, and the one that loses got a little bit of work to do. It lasts longer in March than the team that they lost to. It's the nature of the sport, and I've seen this club do it before. Early losses are not a bad thing if you learn a lot from it, and I suspect that they'll learn a lot from this.
Yeah,
in the positive and in the negative.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, most definitely. I tweeted a similar thing after the game. I thought there was, obviously a loss is a loss, no moral victories. Saw this from a lot of people. But I thought there were some really positive things that Carolina could take away from tonight's game and will take away from tonight's game. And
this is a building process. That, you know what? This field of 68 ain't being announced next week, man.
I got plenty of time, right?
It's a long ways away. So let's just roll it out there and see what these guys did.
Yeah, most definitely. Last thing I want to hit on, AJ, let's talk about the defense. Got to touch on it. I mean, and pretty simply, it just needs to improve. I tweeted as one thing I was kind of looking to watch before the game started to see if Carolina's defense improved at all. I mean, obviously Purdue with 93 points. I know it's a really elite team, but what is it, third straight game now that Carolina's allowed 80 or more points? Obviously Brown, College of Charleston, and now Purdue. So it needs to get better. Purdue shooting 55.7% from the floor tonight. Three players with 20+ points for the Boilermakers. I know Zach Edey was kind of quiet, 4 for 7 from the floor, only 9 points. So Dig did a pretty good job of stopping him at least minimizing his shots and opportunities. But overall, it's just I haven't really seen enough, particularly like you said early in the game. I know you said it was kind of reminiscent of Wisconsin last year. I think it got a little bit better, but overall, I just don't think we've seen enough from Carolina on the defensive end of the ball to think they're elite, but I think there's still a lot of steps that they can take.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think Purdue shot around 55%.
Yeah, 55%.
Floor, hit a lot of threes. Man, the first play of the game, Purdue just drove right down the lane. It was almost like dummy defense and or dummy offense rather when you're not being guarded. Right to the rim, got a basket. They had a lot of that stuff, but man, they found their guys on kickouts.
Yeah, big time.
I asked who was it? I asked Caleb, I think, after the Charleston game about what the difference was defending the perimeter after that torrid start by Charleston. He said, "Well, coach keeps telling us, don't leave your man, don't leave your man." Well, when Sasha, and I don't want to bungle his last name, when he's wide open a bunch out there, and when Ivy's open, other guys are open out there for threes, that means guys left their man.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to take time for Hubert's defensive philosophy to kind of mesh together. It's just going to take time. Right now, it doesn't look very good. The switching on screens, at times we've seen this club get in some really bad matchup situations. And with the threes, the way that they were used to helping it a lot before, the tendency is to leave your guy in to help. So they're leaving guys wide open. And because opponents have had a lot of success getting into the lane with the ball, they're able to suck in the defense a little and kick it out for those wide open threes. They got to fix this. They're not going to be great defensively probably at any point this year. I just don't think that they're springy enough to be great defensively. They can maybe tweak some things and change how they approach it to more maximize what their strengths are. But I saw a team tonight that quite frankly, it's very, very warm in here. It's like, and I'm also insulated, so pardon me if I'm getting shiny on my face, but Purdue got a lot of what it wanted. In fact, Matt Painter was asked, they went before Carolina in the press conference. He was asked about scoring 93 points against North Carolina. He's like, look, guys, we're not going to score like that against a lot of teams. He said, we're not very good defensively right now. And he said, in North Carolina's not good defensively right now. Yeah. And I think that sums it up. They're not very good defensively right now. They have to get better in all areas of defense, from the communication to defending the ball. They got to defend the wing better. They got to defend the dribble drives. If they're going to help defensively, they have to know when to help. There were a lot of times where guys are there and they didn't help. I just think they're thinking a lot defensively. They're being asked to do something a lot different than they were before. Well, somewhat different enough. I just think they're thinking a lot out there. Yeah. Because this club has grit. They have played with energy. You got to do it on the other side of the court. But I don't think it's a lack of grit or energy so much in the defensive end. They're just kind of lost a little bit defensively right now, to be honest with you. They will get better. They'll get better defensively. There's no doubt about it. But they have a lot of issues right now. And I do think Leaky being out there, a lot of people want to get on Leaky and they think, well, we need Kerwin out there and not Leaky. Kerwin can hit shots, Leaky can't. Well, you saw tonight why you needed Leaky. Leaky can get stops. His length would have affected Ivy. Oh, yeah. He's got a great defensive slide. He can stay in front of the guy a little bit better. So I think that would have been – I'm not going to say it would have been a difference. I think Carolina was probably going to lose this game no matter what, but it would have made it a lot more interesting. Armando without foul trouble and Leaky on the court defending would have made this game a lot more interesting.
Most definitely. Good place to wrap this one up, AJ. Carolina losing 93-84, taking on number 17 Tennessee tomorrow at 3:30. Tennessee lost 71-53 to Villanova in their opening game today. AJ, what kind of setup are you rocking with, man? It sounds like somebody's cleaning like right beside you.
They're all over the place. And I'm kind of in a place where, like, if there's air moving around, it's not finding its way into this little coffin that I'm doing this in.
Hey, we've had some makeshift road setups anyway. I mean, we're used to it.
It's the way it is, the way of the world. I'm just glad I don't have to have a mask on. Exactly. No mask in here today.
Exactly.
Except Roy was wearing one.
Yeah, I about to say, I saw Roy wearing one.
Roy and a few people, but in Carolina wore them in the press conference. I just think it's the schools. You got it.
Yeah.
They have to be careful. So,
most definitely.
But this was the most normal sports experience I've had since before the pandemic.
Yeah, you tweeted it was a similar kind of vibe to the Sweet 16 in terms of the atmosphere. Didn't you say that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And for a while, it kind of reminded me of the Carolina-Kentucky game back in December of 2016 in Las Vegas, which is still probably the best and most thrilling, greatest atmosphere of a non-conference regular season game I've ever covered. And this was like that for a while. Carolina just couldn't get stops. If they got a few more stops, this game would have been more neck and neck down the end.
Yeah.
But still a lot of fun. Still got a lot of information on the Tar Heels as we try to collect as we move forward covering this team.
Yeah, most definitely. Carolina dropping to 3-1 on the season. Like I said, playing the Volunteers tomorrow at 3:30. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. As always, guys, appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well, and keep it locked at TarHeelIllustrated.com. Link in the description below for all your coverage from Wofford football today and obviously from Carolina's loss to Purdue. Head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.